Initiation by Elisabeth Haich. Chapter 39, We Will Meet Again. One day the court is making ready to celebrate a great reception. Some time ago, Father sent his commander, Thistha, together with many notables, a large number of troops, and ships full of presents and goods for barter, as an emissary to a far country. The ruler there received our dignitaries very cordially, and soon thereafter sent his own troops bearing gifts and goods for barter to our country. Today we're going to celebrate the arrival of these foreign troops. Menu decks me out in my most beautiful dress, and with the usual ceremonies, Ruka brings me the queen's jewels. Then the two elders escort me to Father, and we walk through the long colonnades, accompanied by the whole court. In this manner we walk out in a column onto the terrace before the palace. In his full dignity and great beauty, the pharaoh takes his place on his golden throne in the middle of the terrace. To his right is his audience lion, while I take my seat to his left, and a bit out in front, almost at the edge of the terrace. The people of rank take their proper places, to our right and left according to their degree and station. Then the great reception begins. The troops of the foreign power march up in a long festive procession. Their leader and his retinue step up before the terrace and bow down before us with outstretched arms. Then their leader makes a fine speech in our language to tell us how eager his ruler is to reach a long-term alliance with us. Then he calls his porters forward to bring us our gifts. I observe the changing scene from above and look at the men in their leader's retinue. All of splendid physique, they wear their ceremonial robes and military armor. The strangers are big, strong, broad-shouldered, and very muscular men. In our country, only the descendants of the race of the sons of God are as tall and strong as these strange soldiers, but much more slender, nimble, and resilient. Ptahhotep, father, and some other descendants of the sons of God, like Ima, Mentupa, Imhotep, and some priestesses, have beautiful and powerful bodies, but they are majestic, dignified, full of spirituality, less robust. They don't look so much like splendid animals. Never before in my life have I seen people like these strangers. They don't please me at all. In our country, I'm accustomed to seeing finely chiseled facial features that reflect spirituality, especially among the descendants of the race of the sons of God, and even among the hybrid race. These strangers have irregular features that make them look like animals, especially their ears. Our ears are small, narrow, finely chiseled, with the lobe separate from the side of the neck. These strangers have big, broad ears, their lobes joined to their neck like those of monkeys. And what strikes us all as particularly strange is their red hair. Their faces, hands, arms, and feet are covered with an abundance of hair, shining like golden threads in the sunshine. They are self-assured, and when they talk or laugh, they reveal rows of beautiful, white, glistening, strong teeth. But this feature, too, makes me think of animals. They radiate great strength, but not spiritual strength. No, I don't like their looks. I can see our guests from above find us just as strange as we think they are. They don't like our looks either. I see their eyes have not yet been opened to the spirit. They are unable to appreciate or even to perceive any fine, delicate, spiritualized shapes. They see only the people of our country are smaller than they. Reading their thoughts, I can see they hold us in contempt. I am accustomed to seeing the fire of admiration kindled in the eyes of men when they look at me. These strangers admire my robe and my jewels without noticing at all that I am beautiful. I can see very well that they're curious about me, the queen of this country, and they stare at me at every opportunity without noticing that I am beautiful. Yes, I know. I inherited my mother's small stature, but a woman's beauty does not depend on her size. But these men, these strange warriors from a far-off country, think a woman has to be big and fleshy to be beautiful. I observe myself as I always do. Have feelings of vanity sprung up within me? No, far from it. I am merely displeased because they are so ignorant, immature, and crude, like people in the lowest class of the sons of men in our country. All these people are so lacking in culture and polish, including their leaders and the people of rank accompanying them. One of them is standing in front of the terrace, right in front of me. He must be a high officer because he has come forward in the closest proximity to their commander. Now he's standing amidst a group of soldiers and staring at me incessantly. The corners of his mouth show a disrespectful attitude. The way he acts really doesn't benefit a person of rank. How can a man stare at a woman so impertinently? In all our court, only Ruka is as impertinent as this fellow, and even he can't conceal his admiration for my beauty. But this stranger merely stares insolently without the slightest admiration. Nevertheless, I fight down any and all feelings of vanity within myself. I watch out and I keep myself under constant control. I turn away to watch the ceremonies again, fascinated by the military games these soldiers are playing. I must admit they possess physical strength unknown in our country. Their race is descended from a half-blooded son of God who manifested his father's high divine power in his blood instead of his spirit, and so became a giant. His descendants intermarried with primitive people and developed a big-boned race with enormous muscular strength. They're not nearly so agile and adroit as our warriors, but they can perform feats of strength that would go beyond the ability of our soldiers. During these military games, I glanced down once in a while at the insolent foreigner in front of me. He's still staring at me untiringly. Actually, it would be a truly inspiring task to guide such an uncultured, red-headed stranger into the mysteries of the spirit, to help him step by step, to open his inner eyes, to enable him to see the beauty of a woman's spirituality instead of only her flesh. For several days, I am so preoccupied with our guests from far abroad that I have no time to go to the temple. Feasts and ceremonies follow each other in rapid succession. Exhibitions, excursions, and banquets. In all of these events, it is my duty to take my place beside my father in officiating as host and hostess. Menu is in her element, clothing me in the most beautiful, ever more magnificent robes. Bogar, however, is embittered and saddened because I have no time for him. Ruhak comes frequently with his jewel bearers to bring me new creations of the jeweler's art. I go through all of this because it's my duty to do so. Nevertheless, I look at my image in the great silver mirror with eager curiosity, wondering what the foreigner from abroad will have to say about my new robe or my new jewels, especially when my father and I and all the court, once dressed up after fashion of our guests from abroad in order to show our friendly attitude towards them. I really have to laugh to see how odd father looks in his strange costume. And I? Won't our red-headed guests from afar find me beautiful even in these clothes? For by this time I have got acquainted with him. Father introduced me to his commander and all the ranking officers, including him, and now I find myself in the company of these emissaries from abroad every day. Their country's ruler, in preparing for this expedition, selected only men who had succeeded in learning our language in a very short time. Thus we are able to converse very pleasantly with our guests and exchange ideas with them. But I find myself ill in case the presence of this strange guest from abroad, who stared at me so insolently throughout our reception ceremony, and my heart beats faster when I realize he has exactly the same voice as the man who turned into a flaming spirit in my initiation dream. How strange. These strangers are peculiar people, lacking in culture and learning, but not stupid at all. They live very close to nature, and even though they don't intellectually know the inner creative laws and the essence of things, they know a lot as a result of their own direct experiences. It is remarkable to observe how a truth which we see clearly and know in our spirit through inner contemplation appears in these people as mere belief and superstition. When they don't know the source and the cause of a force, they imagine that it comes from an invisible being, and they then give the name God to their imaginings, and they stubbornly insist on calling these imaginary fairy tale creatures gods. They think they know everything better. When one tries to tell them the truth and explain real facts to them, they merely shake their head and laugh condescendingly. Of course, I'm not permitted to tell them any of the secrets of the temple, but still, I have tried to explain to our foreign guest the forces which cause lightning and thunder in a storm. I knew I wouldn't be permitted to tell him how the high priest uses the Ark of the Covenant in the pyramid to create lightning and rain, the blessed rain that keeps our country from becoming absolutely barren. But I did try to explain to him that lightning comes from the meeting of two opposite forces, and that he can cause the same phenomena himself by striking two pieces of stone together. At this, he gave me a supercilious look, saying he knew very well that lightning was the arrow of the chief god, and that little demons live in certain stones and become angry and shoot out little flashes of lightning whenever they're disturbed. When I tried to give him the true explanation of this phenomena, I found his mind closed up tight. In one sense, it doesn't make any difference whether we consider lightning to be the arrow of the chief god or the meeting of positive and negative forces. But if these people continue to believe their superstitions and all their various imaginary gods, they'll never learn to control the forces of nature. They'll always remain slaves of their own superstition. Anyway, I have succeeded in getting our strange red-headed officer guest interested enough in my explanations of various natural phenomena, so that he's always eager to hear more. He said he would like to have me to teach him. So, he's going to come to the temple every day, and I will initiate him into the lowest degree of knowledge. After sunset, Menu helps me into my priestess robes. Then, heavily veiled, we both walk over to the temple. A neophyte has accompanied our officer guest to the little cell in the temple where he is awaiting me. Menu stays behind the temple court, and I enter the cell. The stranger is already there. Standing there, leaning against the wall of my cell, he greets me with his usual smile of superiority. This smile annoys me. How does he dare to look at me this way? He's not my superior in any respect. Just because he's physically bigger and stronger, he ignorantly assumes himself to be superior in every way. He doesn't have the faintest idea that the power of mind stands over everything. But I'm going to show him. With the power of my mind, I'm going to conquer this insolent, red-headed giant. Despite all his physical power, he'll be vanquished. And through my spiritual power, I will come out victorious. The stranger bows deeply, but I see clearly that he's doing it without conviction. Here in our country, the people practically worship me. They know I am an initiated priestess, a servant of God. The stranger also knows I am a priestess in the temple, but he doesn't know what initiation means. He doesn't know that our knowledge is not a system of beliefs based merely on human imaginings, but rather the direct recognition of truth, divine omniscience. But I'll open his eyes. I'll explain the mystery of man and the universe to him. I'll guide him into the mystery of all creation. If you want to achieve true knowledge, I tell him, you must first learn to know yourself. You have to know what you yourself are. Then you will come to know yourself, and you will discover all the truths of the universe are concealed within your own being. Thus, through self-recognition, you will get to know all the secrets of the world. First, solve the great puzzle of our Sphinx, that of man himself. You must recognize what you are. The stranger looks at me attentively at first, and then begins to smile. I'm supposed to learn what I am? I've known that for a long time. Why is that supposed to be such a great mystery? But it seems to me, oh Queen, that you don't know what I am. And so I'm telling you, I am a man. And with that, he lets out a hearty laugh, showing his big white teeth. Oh my, what a child he is. His laugh is so infectious, I can't help laughing myself. I know very well that you're a man, I answer him. But I can't even finish my sentence because the red-haired man interrupts me impolitely. It seems to me, Queen, that you do not know I'm a man, and that you don't even know what a man is. I'm not a priest. I can't read people's thoughts the way you can, but I know women, and I can see something you don't know at all, or else you've forgotten it, and that is what you are. You don't know you're a woman. How do you think you can teach me the inner secrets of man and the universe if you don't even know this simple fact that everybody else can see? I know very well that I'm a woman, I say with dignity. The stranger smiles insolently, but I continue undisturbed. The outer form is only the mantle of the inner being. When one knows the inner being, and when one is the inner being, he uses the outer form only as an instrument, but he does not identify himself with it. The body is only the robe of the self. You wear clothing too, and yet you are not the clothing. In the same way, you wear a body which can be either male or female, but if yourself stands above the sexes, it is neither man nor woman. The self is the creator. The person, the physical, material manifestation, is only one half of the true being. The other half has remained behind in the unconscious, the unmanifested state. And whether a manifestation is male or female depends merely on which half has incarnated itself. When a person has made both halves of his being conscious and experienced them consciously, he has become identical with his self, and then he carries within himself both the male and female principles in complete equilibrium. But still, his body is either male or female, isn't it? He asks. Yes, indeed, I answer. The material phenomena can only be one-sided, for whenever the two sides merge into unity, there is nothing physical. The union of the two complementary halves, the merging of the two sides, would mean complete annihilation of matter, complete dematerialization of the body. One can only be androgynous in spirit. Queen, answers the guest from abroad, there's only one thing in all your pretty words that I can really understand quite clearly, a point on which I'm in complete agreement with your secrets, namely, that my physical manifestation, as you express it so neatly, is only half of a unit. In the past, I have often sought and found a complementary half, but I was never annihilated in doing so, perhaps because I never found the real unity. But even if it were to mean annihilation, I would go on seeking my true complementary half. I am a man, and my other half can only be a woman who gives me complete and perfect happiness. For such a woman, I would gladly lay down my life. I feel in my warm body a warm rush. of blood that reaches my head. In the face of such a way of thinking, I am completely powerless. How can I explain to him that the earthly happiness he is seeking in a woman is only transitory and unable to satisfy his immortal soul? We end our discussion for today. He must have time to digest the new truths I have given him. And there follow many evenings in which I do battle with his ignorance. I am determined to help him make progress, and I take all kinds of care to say the right words to him in order to fan the divine spark into flame and awaken his higher self. When I wake in the morning, he is already in my thoughts. I remember everything we spoke about the previous evening and concentrate my thinking throughout the day on the lesson that I'm going to give him in the evening. Often during these days, I race through the countryside with my lions, but now it's without Bogar. Bogar hangs his head as he goes to his master Ima for lessons and tries to console him with all kinds of presents and everything else a boy's heart could wish for. I'm sorry to see Bogar so sad, but I need time to be alone with my own thoughts. After one of the chariot rides, while I'm taking leave of my lions in the lions' court, I pat their heads and I run my fingers through their manes. As I'm doing this, it suddenly occurs to me that our officer guest from abroad has exactly the same color hair as my lions. If I were to stroke his head, the same thick locks of red hair would be slipping through my fingers. Oh, how I love these lions. That evening, I tell our guest my observation about his having the same color hair as the lions. Queen, he says, may I go for a chariot ride with you sometime? If I could see you control real live lions with your willpower, I'd begin to believe in your superhuman powers. And he laughs tauntingly. Where have you heard that I have superhuman powers? Everybody I talk to adores you like a goddess. Everybody believes you're a supernal being, but I don't. I feel injured. What do you think about me, I ask, noticing with some annoyance that my heart is pounding while I wait for his answer. In the very next moment, quick as a flash, Ptahhotep's image pops up before my inward eye with a warning expression on his noble face. No, leave me alone, I answer the inward image. I'm in no danger. And outwardly, I go on listening to what the stranger says. So, you want to know what I think about you. Why do you want to hear that from me? If you're so high up and above everything earthly, why should you be interested in what goes on in a poor earthly head like mine? And after all, you can read people's thoughts, can't you? Yes, I can read your thoughts, but I want to see whether you're being frank with me, I answer. But as I do so, I'm aware of an uneasy feeling. There is no time to try to find out what this feeling means, because the stranger asks again. So, you want to know whether I'm being frank with you? Why don't you ask yourself first whether you're being frank with yourself? I'm speechless. I just don't know what to answer. For years I've made a habit of self-observation in order to seek out the motives of all my thoughts and deeds. I am convinced I am frank with myself and therefore frank with the rest of the world, including him. Nevertheless, his words bring an embarrassing surprise. Could he be right? Have I really lacked the courage, frankly, to face all my thoughts and feelings? I resolve to examine myself even more thoroughly, but in any case I'm going to concentrate all my efforts in order not to be defeated in the struggle with him. I must come out victorious. I mustn't allow an uncouth stranger to think that I'm weaker than he is. I mustn't allow him to think he stands above me. The next day we go for a chariot ride together. Before we get in, the stranger stands beside the lions and holds out his shaggy red head towards me. Want to try and see if my hair really feels like the lion's? If they don't mind your stroking their hair, I may be able to stand it too, he says, with a hearty laugh that erupts from between two perfect rows of white teeth. He really is a big child. He's not behaving this way out of lack of respect. And I can't be angry at him. I have to laugh too. And if the keeper of my lions weren't standing near, I would really feel like tussling his hair. And so it goes, day after day. And the time quickly draws near when the stranger will have to return to his homeland. In many respects, I could be satisfied. As a woman, I could even gloat in the triumph at the way his attitude has changed. He has put away his superior airs, and he waits all day long, every day, for the evening to come so that we may be together. I realize he never really felt superior, and that his overbearing manner was actually a kind of self-defense to save him from complete capitulation. He didn't want to give up his masculine arrogance. He admired me from the very first moment he saw me, and my vanity, which first drove me to spend time in his company, could now be completely satisfied. And yet, I am not satisfied. On the contrary, I'm plagued by persistent anxiety. But every time I analyze my feelings, this anxiety gives me the reassurance that my interest for him is not coming from the feminine instinct of my lower nature, for I am constantly watching and checking on myself. Minu says I show all the unmistakable symptoms of being in love, and she's overjoyed at that I'm blooming at last, but she's wrong. She's in no position to judge, because she considers everything from her earthly standpoint. She can't begin to understand that I cannot and must never fall in love, and that I am not in love now. How could I ever fall in love with this uncouth, unkept, red-headed giant? He's not my type. Physically, he seems strange, even repulsive to me. In my moments of self-examination, I've often asked myself whether I would want to have a child with him. Heaven forbid! A child with such ears and such an ungainly, raw-boned body. Never! In any case, I know absolutely I would never want to have a child with him. So, I'm not in love. I only want him to find God. I am keenly interested in each of my pupils, and for this very reason I think of him so often and with such concentration of all my attention. But he hasn't found God yet. In this point, I haven't yet succeeded. That's why I feel so sad and anxious when I realize he is soon going to have to leave our country, and I may never see him again in this life. Then everything happens faster than a flash of lightning. On our last evening together, I go to the temple to see him, and I take leave of him. And to take leave of him, as usual, he's leaning against the wall, but now he doesn't seem so superior the way he did when he waited there for me for the first time. Now he doesn't even look at me, but he stands, staring off into the distance. What's the matter? I ask him. I'm just trying to think what kind of sense it makes for me to have been coming here to see you every evening. What did you want of me, you beautiful queen with no heart? What use have I had of all the things you've told me if they've only served to make me unhappy? You've talked on and on about my having to find myself, but with every one of your words and deeds, you've helped me lose myself completely. I was a brave, courageous fighter, afraid of no one, and now I've become a slave, the slave of a tiny woman who hardly comes up to my shoulder. And now I'm afraid of the future. How am I going to live without you? A hot wave of joy floods through my being. I try to imagine it's only my vanity, but I feel a shock. In the beginning, I really did want him to recognize my feminine beauty and power, and as soon as I'd achieved that, I wanted to use my power over him to help him on the inner path. I took all kinds of pains to awaken the self within him, but instead he's fallen in love with me. I didn't want to go that far. I don't want earthly love. I've wanted to create with him a far higher unity, the unity of the self. I wanted to lead him to God. But it's done no good at all for me to bring forth the deepest truths from out of my inner being. He sees me only as a woman. He cannot or will not rise above the sensual. He doesn't see me. He doesn't realize that he does not love me. I don't really exist for him. He merely loves my body, the outer cloak, which is merely a manifestation of my true self. How horrible! How debasing! Look, I say, trembling. It hasn't made any sense at all for you to come here to see me because we just don't understand each other. We just can't get together. I want to help you rise to the spiritual plane, and you want to drag me down to the level of the body. It hasn't made any sense at all to go through all this trouble. Go back to your homeland in peace, and we'll never meet again. At these words, the blood rushes to his head, his face, his neck. The whole man becomes dark red, so dark his hair seems lighter than his skin. His eyes flash like glowing embers, and with a shock, I see his whole spiritual body turning into a powerful flame. And then, without having had time to defend myself, he seizes my arm, holding it as if in iron tongs. He pulls me to his mighty breast, embraces me, pushes my head backward, presses his mouth to my lips with such force that I lose my breath, and then he kisses my face, my neck, and my lips again, and in between his burning kisses he whispers hoarsely, "So, you don't want to see me anymore, but I want to see you, and we will meet again. We'll meet again." As I saw his wild face coming close, I felt a wave of deathly panic. I wanted to push him back and get him away, but he locked me in his mighty arms and he pressed my burning hot mouth upon his lips. All my inner being caught his fire. I lost control over myself. Without resistance, I gave in to the overwhelming feeling of pleasure and delight that sprang right out of my fright and swept through me. Now I realize I love him. I have loved him from the first moment, with all my body and my soul and my whole being. I love him passionately, and I always will. The fire overwhelms me, as if coming forth from a gigantic volcano. Hot flames sweep through me, devour me. My backbone feels like a bridge of glowing embers, holding 7 burning torches. But now I'm no longer in the immovable axis of my spinal column, no longer in the midpoint from my true self radiates the fire of life. On the contrary, my consciousness has fallen into my burning body, and sparkling, crackling flashes of lightning race through my veins, through my whole being. All my nerves are aglow, all my thoughts blotted out. They're burning out my consciousness, annihilating me, and then I black out, and everything disappears. Little by little, I come back to again. Slowly, I open my eyes, see stone walls around me. I am lying on the floor of my little cell. I am alone. I am surrounded by the silence of a tomb. I have no thoughts. I haven't anything I could think about anymore. Dejected and broken, I get up, cover my weary head with my veil, and leave the cell. The long colonnade is dark and seemingly empty. After a few steps, I see a dark form leaning against the opposite wall. Ima. He stands there as if made of stone, staring at me in an indescribably wild look in his eyes. Even in the darkness, I can see it, have to see it. He looks right into me, right through me. Then he turns and he walks away, softly in the opposite direction. Without a thought in my head, I go back to the palace. Menu, who has fallen asleep in a corner of the temple court, accompanies me, as usual, in silence, except for an occasional loud yawn.